You're listening to WCAT Radio, your home for authentic Catholic programming.
Welcome. My name is Frank Ambrosio, and I'm the director of the My Dante project at Georgetown University. Today it's my great pleasure to welcome you to a reading of the second canticle of Dante's Divina Commedia, voiced by Daniel Fitzpatrick. Danny will be reading his own translation of the poem, recently completed to honor the 700th anniversary of the great poet's death in the year 1321. Poetry is meant to be spoken and heard. Listen now as Dan Fitzpatrick reads the Purgatorio, the great story of the rebirth of human hope.
Hello and welcome back to the Dante in a Year podcast. My name is Danny Fitzpatrick. Today we continue with Dante's Purgatorio, Canto 18. After having finished his discourse, the lofty doctor looked closely upon my face to see if I seemed content. And I, who still was spurred by new-found thirst, was silent without, while within myself I said, "Perhaps I've weighed him down with too much questioning." But that true father, attentive to that timid wish I kept unspoken, made me by his speaking burn to speak myself. At which I, "Master, my sight is so enlivened in your light, that I can see clearly as much as your reason divides or describes. But I pray you, dear sweet father, that you show me this love to which you reduce all good operations and their opposites. Direct," he said, "the sharp light of your intellect toward me, and there will be manifest the error of the blind who make themselves guides. The soul, which is created ready to love, is moved to each thing that pleases as soon as it's awakened to the pleasure in the act. Your apprehension draws from true being an intention, and this is displayed within you, so that the soul may turn toward it. And if turned, it bends toward it. That bending is love, which by nature is bound to you anew by pleasure. Then, as the flame moves upward by its form, which is born to rise there where its matter more endures, so the seized soul enters upon desire, which moves the spirit such that it knows no repose until the thing loved should be enjoyed. Now it may appear to you how much the truth is hidden to the people that profess each love laudable in itself. Perhaps because the matter seems something ever good, but not all seals are good, though the wax itself be good. Your words and my trailing sense, I replied, have discovered love to me, but that has made me heavier with doubt. For if love is offered us from without, and the soul goes by no other foot, there's no merit in the straight or the twisted way. And he to me, as much as reason here sees, I can say, from there on you must just wait for Beatrice, for it works by faith. Each substantial form that's separate from matter, and none the less united with it, has its strength in its specific disposition, not to be sensed without its operation, nor shown except in its effect, as life in plants is shown by verdant fronds. So, there whence comes the knowledge of the first principles, or those first objects of affection, no man knows. For they are in you just as the labor in bees to make honey. And this first will merits no call for praise or blame. Now so that to this each other will accord, there's born in you the power that commands, and ought to hold the threshold of assent. This is the principle where there is displayed the cause of merit in you, according to its gathering the good and casting off the wicked loves. Those who, reasoning, came to this depth, noticed this innate liberty. Thus they left the world their ethics. From here, I set it down that every love inflamed within you surges of necessity, and the power to hold it back is in you. Beatrice understands this noble strength as the freedom of choice, and so see that you have it in mind if she should choose to speak of it. The moon, so late as midnight, made the stars seem scarcer to us, appearing as a pale that burned across the sky. And it coursed against the sky along that road that the sun in flames seen from Rome when it falls between Sardinia and Corsica. and that gentle shade for whom Pietola is known more than any other Mantuan village, had disposed of the weight of my burden, so that I, who had gathered plain apparent answers to my questions, stayed as a man wandering somnolent. But this somnolence was suddenly snatched from me by people who were bearing toward us from behind our shoulders, and as Ismenus and Aesopus once saw fury course along them at night when the Thebans had need of Bacchus, such passed as a scythe along that circle, so that I saw by their carriage that they rode with good will and just love. Soon they were around us, since all that stirred mass came coursing on, and two in advance cried, weeping. Mary rushed in haste to the hills, and Caesar, to subjugate Ilerda, burst upon Marseilles and then raced to Spain. Swiftly, swiftly, that time not be lost in little love, cried the others after, that laboring for good might make grace green again. O people in whom keen fervor now repays perhaps negligence and laziness in your having been tepid in doing good, this man who lives, and truly I do not deceive you, wills to go up, once the sun illumines us again. So tell us where the nearest passage lies. These were my leader's words, and one of those spirits said, Come after us, and you will find the mouth. We are so full of the will to move that we cannot rest, so pardon us if our justice should seem rude. I was abbot in San Zeno at Verona under the power of the good Barbarossa, whom Milan still considers in sorrow, and one already has a foot within the grave, who suddenly will weep for that monastery, and to have it in his power will be sorrow, because he's placed his son, unsound in body and worse in mind, ill-born indeed, in the place of its true pastor. I don't know if he said more or was silent, so far from us had he already rushed, but I heard this, and it pleased me to hold on to it. And he who soothed my every need said, Turn back there. See those two come snapping after Acedia. After all the rest, they said, Those for whom the sea spread were dead before the Jordan saw their heirs, and those who didn't bear the breathlessness to the end with the son of Anchises gave themselves to lives devoid of glory. Then, when those shades were so far divided from us that we could see them no more, a new thought moved within me, from which so many more were born, and I so wandered from one to the other that my eyes clouded over with emptiness, and my musing was transmuted into dream. Thanks for joining me for another episode of the Dante in a Year podcast. See you next time for Dante's Purgatorio, Canto 19.
Hello, God's beloved. I'm Annabelle Mosley, author, professor of theology, and host of Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. I invite you to listen in and find inspiration along this sacred journey we're traveling together to make our lives a masterpiece and, with God's grace, become saints. Join me, Annabelle Mosley, for Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. God bless you. Remember, you're never alone. God is always with you.
Thank you for listening to a production of WCAT Radio. Please join us in our mission of evangelization. And don't forget, love lifts up when knowledge takes flight.